Nitzavim-Vayelech, which is an amazing double Parsha, which I find to be very, very emotional and also inspirational. It comes on the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. So needless to say, it is a unique moment. But I want to do something a little bit different. I want to start off with a little bit of mood music. And it will become apparent later why. This is one of my favorite songs, and I'm sure for many of you as well. So although I have a lot to say, I want to devote a minute or two to this song. So bear with me, hopefully, if it loads. And we can play a little bit of this song. Here we go. Okay. Very beautiful, inspirational song and very apropos for our discussion. As I mentioned before, Moshe's last moments with the nation and devoting this Parsha to what I consider the totality, eternity of Am Yisrael and Tshuva, because it's always read just before the Amim Noraim. So Moshe begins this last message of his life by paying tribute to Am Yisrael. And he says to them, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Hashem Elokeichem. You are all standing here. And this follows, of course, the tochacha, the curses, at the end of last week's Parsha of Kitavo. And Moshe says, you've survived that. And essentially saying, that's who we are. We will survive. We're still standing. And reminiscent, of the first Rocky movie, where he just keeps getting hit again and again and again. Finally, one of the announcers says, what is keeping him up? Now, this is, in a sense, what Moshe is saying. We take all the punches, but we stay up. Indeed, it's interesting. Rashi says, you are standing here today. Rashi comments on the word hayom and says, it is a day that is both bright and cloudy. A very mysterious Rashi, but it seems to me that what Rashi is saying is this is Jewish life. It's cloudy and it's bright at the very same time. We're experiencing that now. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and yet we're living in this glorious country. We're dealing with, the possible lockdown, and yet we have a lot to be thankful for as well. And so it's bright, seems to be bright and cloudy at the same time. Well, Moshe, so he begins by paying tribute, and he makes some beautiful statements. And one of them is, and again, this last message, he says to the people, it's not only with you that I am making this covenant, but he says, who is it with? He says, Ki et asher yeshno po imanu omeid hayom, bet asher einenu po imanu hayom. I am making this eternal covenant with those who are standing here today, with those of you in front of me, but I'm also referring not only to them, but to others who aren't here. Who are the ones who aren't here? So, first of all, it seems clear that he would be paying tribute as well to the Jews who came before the nation that received the Torah, about to enter Eretz Yisrael. All the avot, imahot, all of those who laid the groundwork. And in a sense, that idea of always pay tribute to the ones who came before you, to the Jews who came and made the foundation. And, we ask this question, why are we of this generation, Zoche? Why do we merit to live in Eretz Yisrael? Weren't our ancestors greater than we were? Weren't their tefillot much more sincere and powerful than ours? And yet somehow God has chosen us to be the generation that comes to live in Eretz Yisrael, this dream of 2,000 years, the one thing that Moshe longed for and couldn't get, but we merit to have it. Why? What is so special about us? And of course, the answer is that it's not just us, that we are the product, ultimately, of a long line of those who came before us. In a sense, the metaphor is clear, that we are standing on the shoulders, and that's, as the song said, we are standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. And that allows us to be where we are today. And in a sense, it's the strong ones that are at the bottom. If you're caught in a pit and you can't get out, and the only way is by forming a human ladder, it's the strong ones that stand at the bottom, and then the other ones climb on top, up, and we are climbing on, as the song said, we are strong when we are on their shoulders. And then ultimately, we finally make it, I would say, to where if we're not completely over the top, we can peek out, standing on all these great shoulders of all the great Jews of history, to where we can peek out and maybe we're seeing Moshiach and soon be able to get all the way out because of them. And that's why, by the way, we don't forget the Jews of the past. And that's what Moshe is inculcating into us. Those who are Enenu Po Hayom, those who aren't here. So that's why at every Chag we say Yizkor. We make sure to remember them. And we keep an empty seat at the Seder. It's not just for Eliyahu. Other people have a symbolic empty seat to remember those who came before us. Moshe is, okay, let's try to, okay, thank you. Moshe, though, is not only referring to the Jews of the past when he says, I make this covenant with not only those who are here today. He's also talking about future Jews, because as the Kabbalah tells us, the neshama of all Jews was present there, including those who converted to Judaism. That idea, how can they connect to this brit? And the answer is, there is this mystical idea that because Hashem exists in the past, present, and future, he knows who's going to join the Jewish people ultimately. And so those neshamot were included at Har Sinai as well. Now, you might ask the question that how is it fair for Moshe to establish this brit, which comes with a lot of conditions and a lot of repercussions? How can he establish that for future generations? In other words, they didn't stand at Har Sinai. They didn't say Na'aseh v'nishma. So what is it that binds them to an eternal Judaism and being part of this brit with or without their consent? Obviously, somebody can opt out of doing the mitzvot, but we believe that there's a punishment for that. They can't simply say, I won't keep the mitzvot and nothing will happen to me. No, we don't say that. That there is either legal punishment in its actual physical form, or there's punishment b'dei shamayim, at the hands of God. But they can't just bow out and say, I'm getting out and no punishment. So one of the ways to think about it, and it's a very thorny question, and people ask it, but one of the ways to think about it is that, use the example of a pregnant woman who boards a plane. The plane takes off. It's a long, long journey. And on that plane, she has a child. She delivers the baby on the plane. And now that baby begins to grow up, and the baby says, hey, I never agreed to take this flight. I'm getting off. Well, the problem is that once the flight's in progress, nobody's getting off safely until it lands. And in a sense, that's Jewish history. It's the what we might call the flight to Moshiach. And until we get there, the flight to Geula. Once we get there, that will be maybe not the end of the journey or the beginning of a new journey, but until then, nobody can get off. And that's part of this totality and eternity that Moshe Rabbeinu is stressing in this week's Parsha, that you're all on that trip, past Jews, future Jews, everybody, and of course those who he's speaking to directly. And then he tells us, the pasuk goes into something that's people have wondered about for all eternity. This pasuk Chavchet, Hanistarot Lashem Elokeinu, Vaniglot Lanu Ulvanenu Ad Olam. The secret things belong to God. Those which are revealed belong to us and our children. It's a very puzzling, mysterious statement. What are the hidden things, or who are the hidden things? And then you have above the words Lanu Ulvanenu 11 dots. What are the 11 dots doing there? I want to suggest, and there are many interpretations. One of them is that the hidden things refer to sins which only Hashem knows about. We talked about that earlier, in things that are bidei shamayim, that somebody, quote unquote, gets away with the sin, but God knows, and God will deal with it. That belongs to Hashem. Another idea is that this might be sins that we did unknowingly, or we forgot the halacha. I mean, there's the story about a very, very religious woman we know, and I guess this could happen to you during Corona, but she woke up one morning and she kind of went about her day, and she lives in a religious neighborhood. She went to the dry cleaner, she went to the supermarket, and things seemed kind of strange to her. There were a lot of people out on the street, and she said, for a Sunday morning, this is, a lot of the religious people, this is unusual. Only later did she realize that it was Shabbos. She had fallen asleep early on Friday, and she woke up and she just forgot what day it was. And of course, she felt terrible about it, but this is one of those kind of things that, well, she never meant to do it. And those are in the kind of the category of things that Hashem takes care of. Another idea of this secret things, following along with the pattern of what I'm suggesting for our Parsha, is that these may be secret Jews that don't even know they're Jewish. And Hashem knows. And ultimately, they're going to be rejoined to Am Yisrael. Whenever that happens, there's a Kabbalistic idea that when Moshiach comes, he'll be able to look into the eyes of every person, and he will be able to tell who is Jewish and also what Shevet you are descended from. He will be the ultimate, even though a lot of work is being done to find, lost Jews, the 10 lost tribes, etc. He will be able to have kind of the ultimate Geiger counter to detect who is Jewish and bring these lost Jews back. And of course, we have many examples of this. The most recent probably, and one of the most tragic, are the Jews during the Shoah, especially in Poland. We know that there were many, many hundreds of Jews who were taken in one way or another by non-Jews. Many of them repatriated and returned, but many of them not. And only many years later began to inquire who they are, and then they find out that they're really Jewish, that their parents were, generally speaking, were some survived, but mostly they were killed in the Holocaust. And then they have to make a choice later in life. What are they going to come back to the Jewish fold, or aren't they? But these are perhaps the secret Jews, you might say. In fact, if you will permit, it's quite dramatic, but the 11 dots that are in this pasuk, which many of the Meforshim struggle to understand, and we really don't know for sure. But if you take the letters under the 11 dots and you total the numerical value, the gematria of those 11 letters, it equals in gematria none other than the word Shoah. You can try it yourself, 312 Shoah. So perhaps there's a hint there that all of these Jews that don't even know they're Jewish, they also are included in Moshe's grand statement that we are one family that ultimately will come together. The other gematria of 312 that I like is it equals Or La Yehudim, a light to the Jews. In other words, the Jews of the past, all the Jews that we're not aware of. How many of us really know our great-grandparents or our great-great-grandparents? It's an amazing thing. Some people are lucky and they know back 2 or 3 generations, but the truth is we really don't know the people in our own family, most of us. Some of us don't know our grandparents. My father's parents were deceased before he got married, so of course I never would have met them and don't know all that much about them. And yet we are their product. And so in a sense, they are the kind of Or La Yehudim. So this is part of his inspirational speech to Am Yisrael, saying, understand that you're connected to everybody else, to everyone in the nation, certainly, and then to those who came before you and who came after you. This is a famous apocryphal comment of David Ben-Gurion when he had to make the decision whether to declare the state of Israel, knowing that that would immediately bring on all kinds of danger and war. And he had this meeting with, as the story goes, with his advisors and with military advisors and also allies from who are out of the country, from not Israelis, not Jewish. And then he pardoned himself and he says, I need to consult with 2 other people before I can make the decision. One is my grandfather who's no longer alive. The other is my grandson who hasn't been born yet. I have to see what they think about this. And there is a certain beauty, of course, to that story, that we have to consider the past and consider the future as well. Following along, and as I mentioned, this week's Parsha has really 2 main thrusts. The first is Moshe pumping up the people to tell them, you're going to make it. It may not be easy. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs along the way, but you'll be able to do it if you're strong. And you have, as we say in Pirkei Avot, the past accomplishments and zchuyot and mitzvot of our ancestors, they can always be counted on to get us through the tough times. And obviously, the hope for the future is there to give us extra encouragement and strength. But also, this is a double parsha that has a lot of emphasis on tshuva in many famous phrases. And in the second parsha, Vayelech Moshe, which is a very short but also a very impactful parsha, and it begins Vayelech Moshe, and Moshe went. Where did he go? That's the famous question. It doesn't say where he went. Indeed, if you look at the Rashi, Vayelech Moshe, Rashi quotes the 2 words, but doesn't comment on it, as if to say, I don't know. Where did he go? Well, okay, Rashi doesn't give any kind of clue, but there are others, Meforshim, who do talk about it. And one of the most famous comments is that the Ramban and others, that Moshe went in keeping with the same idea of the totality of the Jewish people, the Achdut. He went to visit each of the Shvatim on the last day of his life to personally say goodbye. Now, this is even for a in shape athlete type like Moshe Rabbeinu, who was known for his strength, this is not simple because we know that the size of the Israelite camp was 12 parsa, which equals 46 kilometers or 28.6 miles. So this is a kind of a marathon run, according to the Ramban, that Moshe did because he wanted to personally say goodbye and to encourage each and every tribe. And that's Moshe Rabbeinu. If anybody could do it, Moshe can do it. And so the Ramban accepts that. But there's another idea that another Moshe gives, Rav Moshe Feinstein. And it's a very powerful idea. Vayelech Moshe, and Moshe went, says Rav Moshe. Where did he go? He went to die. In other words, Hashem had said, your time has come, you're going to die. And Moshe said, okay, I agree. I'm going to die. This is my last day on earth. And what if he didn't agree? What if Moshe said, no, I'm not going? Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, then he wouldn't have died. Then he would have willed himself to live longer. And this is something that it's a phenomenon we're aware of, that there are oftentimes we see, for example, when you look at the graphs of mortality, God forbid it should come anytime soon to us, but you see that the graphs are skewed around Pesach time. People will themselves to live, to experience another Pesach Seder, because it's usually with the family, and you don't want to miss that. This was true around the turn of the millennia with the year 2000. The graphs were also skewed. People wanted to live to see that calendar change to the year 2000. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to us a very powerful idea about tshuva and about life. He's saying, you don't know how much ability or how much power you have to make these choices that you think are being imposed upon you, but they're not. And many, the doctors here can, I'm sure, testify to this idea as well, about the whole concept of the will to live and the psychological power that one has if they make that decision that they're going to live. And this is what Rav Moshe is saying, that that Moshe is, Vayelech Moshe, he made that decision, all right, Hashem has told me that this is what his will is, and I will follow it. But if I didn't want to follow it, I wouldn't. And says Rav Moshe, just as one chooses whether or not to do a mitzvah, so Moshe chose and bowed to the order of Hashem to end his life. And this is, he says, this is part of the power of tshuva. And that's what the pasuk is telling us. Ha-mitzvah hazot lo b'shamayim hi, lo rchokahi, lo nifleti. This mitzvah, which the Rambam says, which mitzvah? It doesn't say which mitzvah, but Rambam says this is the mitzvah of tshuva. And the mitzvah of tshuva, the ability to reconnect to Hashem, to make a new start, to be able to change our path. This is something which is really in our power, even though we think, how can we change our life? Our life is set in a certain routine. It's continuing on, and there's really nothing we can do about it. So the pasuk tells us that's not true. It is something that's completely within our hands, that's doable. It's our choice, whatever we decide we're going to do. And I mentioned this in the Parsha sheet, but I'll just repeat it for those who don't have it. This strange combination of Nitzavim-Vayelech. Nitzavim means to stand firm. It's a little bit different than omdim. Nitzavim is to basically stand or stop. Vayelech is to go. How can you stop and go at the very same time when you have a double parsha like this that says stop and go? So as I quoted there, my Rabbi who said that although you have stoplights which are red, that means stop, sometimes you have at an intersection, a stoplight that says stop going in this direction with the red light, but then it has a green arrow that tells you, however, continue turning in a different direction. So you have to stop the way in which you're going. You're on a path that's not the path you should be on, or you know you should be on. And then you have to turn. And tshuva, of course, in its most intrinsic meaning, means to turn or return, and come back to Hashem. And therefore, this double language of Nitzavim-Vayelech is very, very apropos. So when you put everything together in this Parsha, you really have a beautiful inspirational message that Moshe is leaving to all of us as his legacy. It is that we are one people, that we have an amazing legacy and lineage that comes before us, that comes after us, and that each of us has to bond, first of all, with our own people, and then we have to bond with God. And the way to do that is tshuva. Tshuva is not only between us and God, as we know. Tshuva is also bein adam l'chavero, between ourselves and others. And it's amazing how reaching out can be so effective. All of us have stories. The story I usually try to tell is that we have a neighbor, and at one point some papers, he comes and says, your papers are in our yard, and, can you make sure that doesn't happen again? And, I looked at the papers and I said, the wind blew these, not from our yard, but from somewhere else. And there was this distance until it came time for Purim. And we brought over Shalach Manot to him, to them. And since then, we've become very close friends, and it's good to have a neighbor who's a friend. And that's tshuva. That's just making amends especially with your neighbors. How many of us live and don't even know who our neighbors are? And, they can sometimes be super helpful, but there is tshuva with them, and in many ways it comes before. Hashem says, I'll wait. First make up with your fellow neighbors and fellow Jews, and then come see me. And that's Moshe's message, that connect to your fellow human being, your fellow Jew, and also make every effort to connect with Hashem. And this is the time to do it. And maybe it's a good statement for Corona times. Lo b'shamayim, lo me'ever hayam, says the pasuk. It's not across the sea. So most of us aren't traveling. So this is a good time to stay at home and look inward, concentrate on our family, our friends, our neighbors, and connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this should be, for us, a zchut, so that we will escape safely from this pandemic, and that the future will be filled only with brachot and only with besorot tovot. And I wish to each and every person a shana tova, mituka, ketiva v'chatima tova. If anyone has a comment or question for a moment or two, be happy to listen. As I've always said, if nobody has any comments or questions, I assume you agreed with everything that I said.
Of course we agree.
So you can unmute yourself if you have anything you wish to say.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. And I hope we'll do the right thing. I mean, we're approaching 4,000 cases a day. This is not where we want to be the world leaders. And, each and every one of us have to do our share, and hopefully the message will get across to those who supposedly lead the nation. That's a whole other...
Rabbi, I have to tell you something I had a thought about after all this Corona stuff, is that, well, one of the thoughts was, if I talk about myself, I say, ani. Because if I talk about my people, I say, ami. And those words sound almost exactly the same, except for the mem and the nun, which are so right next to each other in the alphabet, because we all have to be so close. And not only that, it says, if I write ani, I use an aleph, and that's gematria 1. If I write ami, I need an ayin, and that's gematria 70. Shivim panim l'Torah. We're all different. We all have different faces, but there's one Torah for all of us, and we have to be together. And I think that's something. I think that's something so much that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has has shown us with this coronavirus. This coronavirus started not long after we had 3 elections, and the elections were all about the politics. I don't agree with you. I don't get along with you. We don't agree. We can't be together. And it's as if Hashem was saying, what, you can't be together? Well, now with the corona, you really can't be together. And I think we have to fix that. I think we have to strengthen our Avat Chinam and be together, because we are one people, and we really need to understand that. And really,
I'm just going to add one thought to your comment. If you take the mem and the nun, it forms the word mun. Mun, according to many, was the greatest miracle performed for the Jewish people in history, greater than the splitting of the sea. The mun fell from the Shemayim.
yeah.
You are asking for a miracle, but as we said today, it can be done. Nothing is impossible. It seems like it would be a miracle if we could all agree, get on the same page, and get our politicians to.
Well, it's not even that we all have to agree. I have a good friend that says to me, we have to think about it that we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
We're not going to agree on everything. We're all different, but that doesn't mean we can't care about each other and get along.
Even that would be a good agreement if we could agree just to disagree.
Rabbi Stewart.
Yes, Jerry.
Well, we want to wish you a Shana Tova, Gemar Hatima Tova. And the one good thing about the pandemic is I get to see you on Zoom. It's really a pleasure. I feel like you're living upstairs from us, Rabbi Stewart.
Thank you. Every klala has a bracha attached to it, if you can find it. So to everybody, I wish you Vamet Shana Tova. We'll keep you posted if we'll have a class next week, Bezrat Hashem, and the timing probably will be the same time as now. And get ready in sincerity for Rosh Hashanah, which is a week from tomorrow. Wow, pretty soon. All right, wishing everybody Besorot Tovot.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Shana Tova. Shana Tova.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Thank you.